Orda, Paub, good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Standards Committee. My name is Matt Georgiou. I'm the Head of Law and Governance and the Monitoring Officer for the Council. I'm going to preside for the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of Chair. So are there any nominations for the appointment of Chair? Councillor Louise.
I'd like to nominate Clive Wharton-Dale, please.
Is there a seconder? Second, Maggie. Are there any other nominations? No. Then are we do that as a Can you start the vote, please, Berwin? Okay, if you can close the vote, please, Berwin. Okay, that's carried. I will invite up Clive to chair the remainder of the meeting.
So, yeah. Wel, diolch yn fawr iawn pawb. Unwaith eto, mae'n rhededdu I fi I cader cyfarfod yma. Diolch yn fawr. So our next item is to, sorry, forgive me, I'm just acknowledging your confidence and kindness in re-electing me chair, and I'll do my best to carry on the good work of this committee, supported by an excellent and committed bunch of independent and elected members. Thank you. Equally important is the election of our vice chair, please. So, are there any nominations for the position of vice chair of the Standards Committee for Conwy Council? Jill, please.
Thank you. I nominate Brenda Bignold.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for Brenda? Maggie, thank you. Do we have any other nominations for the position of vice chair? No. In that case, can we proceed to a vote, please, through the digital system? I know the system here is new to us and it's still unfamiliar to all of us. So at any stage, if you're not quite sure, don't hesitate.
It's yellow. Yeah, everyone's voted, so we have to close the vote.
So we can close the vote. But what I was going to say is, please, if there are any issues with the technology, just please put your hand up, and we'll try and address them. But so far, so good. So thank you. Yeah. So I think have we got the result of the vote then?
Yeah. It's carried.
Right. There we are. Yes. Yeah, it is. So yeah, the vote is carried, and so I am delighted once again that Brenda will support me on the committee as vice chair. Well done.
Thank you very much.
So unwaith eto bore da, croeso cynnysian I chi gyd i'r cyfarfod Pwyllgor Safonau, Sir Conwy. Just to reiterate, once again, a warm welcome to everybody to the Conwy Standards Committee. For those listening online or in the room as observers or other parties, thank you for your interest in our work. It's good to see you. My name is Clive Wolfendale and I'm the chair of the Standards Committee. And I again welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a multi-location meeting based here in the new council chamber at Coed Pellter. And there are a number of individuals I can see, a number of people that are tuning in remotely. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be made available through the council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available? If you want to make use of the facility, please select the English language option on the microphone delegate unit. If you're in the council chamber, and for those attending remotely by clicking on the audio settings tab and selecting English. Are we all comfortable with how that works now after our little test beforehand? Again, if during the meeting that you're not quite sure, don't hesitate to ask. For those wishing to speak, please press your microphone push to speak button, I'll try and remember, which is located at the bottom of the microphone console. Similarly, for those attending remotely, press the push to speak tab. Your names will appear in a queue and I will take speakers in turn and as I consider appropriate. Do not use the yellow hand function. This should only be used if you want to come in with a point of order. As we get used to the new conferencing system, it's worth noting that if your microphone is red, you are an active speaker, but should wait until I invite you to speak. Those in the queue may appear green at first, but will change to red as you move up the queue. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be enabled to use the chat facility. Remote attendees, if you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please put a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in the meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. And that applies to members, officers, members of the press or public attending. That is the preamble, the new one, reflecting the new system we've got available. Thank you. So we've got a new chair and a new vice chair, and we're good to go. So next, any apologies for absence today, please, Sally?
No apologies, Chair.
Good, thank you for everyone for Teeth Lounge, full house. Any declarations of interest, please? Item 4. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and nature of their declared personal interests. So, right, so we've got 3 listed here, so Sally's going to advise me how I deal with this. So Jill, just click Jill then. Is it not right? Right, okay. So Jill's had a hand up, so we'll do it. That's all gone down. No, right, okay. So Jill, it's Jill and then Maggie and then me, I think. Jill first.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I have a personal interest in item 10.1 as I'm the subject of that report, but I will take the opportunity actually to leave the room at that point. Thank you.
Yeah, noted. Is it Maggie next? Thank you.
Committee know that I've recently been appointed as an independent member of Denbighshire Standards Committee and also as chair.
Congratulations. We'll take Councillor Chris Hughes next, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. I'm declaring a personal interest in item 8, which is a dispensation for myself.
Yeah, thanks. Matt wants to join us here.
Yeah, it is. So that would be both personal and prejudicial interest, Chair, but as you know, the committee can't ask questions of an applicant for a dispensation unless they are here to speak on the issue. So when we come to that item, we'll be able to invite Councillor Chris to speak, and then the committee will have the opportunity to ask any questions of him.
Right. Unless there are any others, Gwyn?
Yn dod nôl I rhif 3, swn I yn hoffi eglurhad. Swn I cael eglurhad efo ar rhif 3. Da chi'n modd, pan da chi'n cael ar y we, da chi'n mynd i bod yn bresennol neu ddim lle. Ond os ydych chi'n dweud na fyddwch chi ddim yn bresennol, ydy'r rhaid i'r aelod yr ymddiheuriadau wedyn.
Do you want to answer? Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Pa fydd y pwyllgor, da ni'n cael gwybod ymlaen llaw pa fydd y pwyllgor yno, am neu le I ddeud ydyn ni'n bwriadu bod yn bresennol neu ddim lle. Ond os ydyn ni'n dweud ydyn ni ddim yn bresennol, ydyn ni'n garo datgan yn cyn y pwyllgor hefyd yn ddiheuriadau lle.
Mae'n well, gyrru e-bost yn dweud, so dwi ddim yn cael ei fethu. Weithio mae'n cael ei fethu os da chi jyst yn pwyso na. So ni'n cael gymaint o e-bost i dweud ia neu na, so maen nhw'n cael ei fethu. Mae'n lot o'n ni'n checker un inbox.
Diolch.
Diolch, Sally. I too must declare an interest in item 8. Because of the content of the matter at hand relates to Colwyn Bay Together, it's an area in which I have other interests relating to community activities. And there's one technical financial relationship between Colwyn Bay Together and the charity for which I still chair, which I think ought to preclude me from participating in that discussion. I hope Councillor Hughes understands what I'm saying and the reason for that. Thank you. Brenda, the Vice Chair, has kindly agreed to manage the discussion around that dispensation at item 8. So, are there any other declarations of interest? Okay, item 5, urgent matters, please. Not unaware of any, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting then, please. We all got sight of those? Could I have, therefore, a proposal that be accepted as a proper record? Jill, seconded. Louise, Councillor Emery, thank you. All in favour? So, show of hands. Show of hands. Right, show of hands, thank you. Good. Item 7 then. Can I just check? We had a little problem with the microphone earlier on. I hope everybody externally can hear me now. I'm trying to keep focused on the microphone. If you do have any issues, just please register it and Sally will prompt me. I think we're okay. So moving on then to item 7, which is the Standards Committee Forward Work Programme. So, Matt, please.
I mean, I think that includes everything for the year for the committee's forward work programme as far as I consider, Chair. Just one thing that I would mention in respect of training, we do tend to have a training session prior to the meeting starting for members of the Standards Committee. The primary purpose of the training when the programme was agreed a couple of years ago now, Chair, was to cover all the constituent parts of the Code of Conduct, which we've now actually done. However, I will consider on a meeting-by-meeting basis whether there are any useful topics that we can hold a training session on. And in fact, I'm planning to cover the adjudication panel for Wales sanctions guidance at the next training session prior to the next meeting, Chair, so we can keep that under review.
Thank you, Chair. No problems at all with the content. There's just a typo where it says the next meeting being September 2025. We don't actually have a meeting in September. The note that I have is the 13th of October.
Thanks for picking that up, Jill. Yeah, Chair, that meeting, at the time that this was produced, the document was produced, it was heading for September, but it is now going to be October. That's correct, so we'll alter that. Thanks.
Please can we have a proposer and seconder to approve the forward work programme? Again, I think we can do this by a show of hands. A proposer first, please. Maggie and Frank seconded. Thank you. A show of hands then, formally. Thank you very much. So now we move to item 8, which is an application for dispensation on behalf of Councillor Chris Hughes. So as per my declaration at this point, I will vacate the seat and indeed the room, and Brenda, if you'd be so kind as to step forward. Yeah, I'll just be outside.
Not quite sure how this is going to work. However, standing in for Clive, welcome to Councillor Hughes. So, Matt, should I invite Councillor Hughes to present? Councillor Hughes, over to you.
Thank you, Cadeirydd. I don't intend to say a lot, just that I have previously had a dispensation between 2004 and 2009 for another organisation that I was involved with, which operated similarly to this, as undertaking activities for, to support young people in the town, and there were no concerns raised about the way in which I implemented the dispensation and when and where I choose to leave, because I thought it was a little bit concerned. The work that I do with Together for Colwyn Bay is largely around events. And for example, we ran the Pride event on Colwyn Bay, which was a partnership between Conway and Together for Colwyn Bay. And I found it really awkward at times, because people would say to me, can you go and get some barriers for around here? I'd go to get barriers. They weren't where we expected them, so I'd then have to ask a member of staff, and sometimes it was just straightforward, but other times there was a little bit of complication involved in that, and I just started to become really uncomfortable. So I felt it was appropriate to approach this body for their views. I don't think I've got much more to add to the application form, Chair.
Okay. We have Councillor Hughes here. We also have his application on the agenda. Are there any questions of Councillor Hughes from members of the committee while we have the opportunity. Councillor Louise.
Hi, thanks for the information. I've just been looking at the website and there's lots of great stuff that you guys do. But can I ask about funding and the scale of funding that's involved in relation to the application form? Obviously, you talked about the £500 at Town Council, but I'd imagine looking at it, the funding that you have used and apply for is far more than that. So can I just ask, is like Kai and Tim, are they paid employees? Have you got any paid employees and how are they paid for?
Tim is Tim Taylor is a paid employee, and we have a Rhian Wood who is a paid employee. All other all directors are volunteers.
So who's your main funder then for that?
We are funded by the National Lottery. There was a BCT, which is a Building Community Trust, was set up by the National Lottery to fund the 13 most deprived communities in Wales as per the Welsh Index of Deprivation, and Colwyn Bay was one of those. So we were allocated an amount of core funding which sits with BCT, and the organisation can draw that down at any time, but it must be drawn down in agreement with the driving change plan. So every 2 years, the residents of Colwyn Bay can come together, and it's open to every resident of the Glyn ward, which is my electoral division, which is the area to which the funding was allocated. But with agreement, we spend it in Colwyn Bay on the basis that almost anywhere in the town centre of Colwyn Bay will benefit the residents of the Glyn ward. So yeah, the money is held in trust by BCT, and once the residents have decided on the driving change plan, then we can draw down money to deliver on that plan.
Sorry, and just final question. So the scale of grants for projects, I'm just looking at some of the good stuff you do here, is in sort of the thousands, it's quite large.
It tends
grants.
to be in thousands, although we have successfully secured grants from the Gwynter Moor for 37,000. However, the organisation does own the building in the town and is working with architects and others towards submitting a grant which would go to Welsh Government for funding, well, potentially for Welsh Government, but it could also involve the National Lottery and other organisations. Now, as I've said in my report, if any of the discussions relate to funding of more than £500, I would intend to leave the room.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor David.
Yeah, just to clarify, Chris, that the funding's for Colwyn Bay, but the money is spent in your ward, Glyn ward, or the town centre. Just to clarify.
No. Yeah. The money is allocated to the Glyn ward of Colwyn Bay as the most deprived community in Conway, and at the time of the creation of the project, one of the 2% most deprived communities in the whole of Wales.
All right, so just when you spoke... Sorry. I apologise for that. Yeah, it's just that when you spoke originally, Chris, you were saying that the money was allocated to Colwyn Bay, but
No.
So it wasn't. It was allocated to the Glyn ward in Colwyn Bay.
I did say the Glyn
All right,
ward.
okay. Thanks for clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, now it seems from my instructions that the members of the committee will stay, but we need to invite other people to leave. Matt, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It'd be an opportunity for the committee to deliberate and ask any matters of process, procedure or law around dispensations, which I can then hopefully help the committee with before reaching a decision. We'll then, once that's happened, we'll then open the meeting back up and I can announce the decision of the committee on your behalf, Chair, if you wish.
Can I just for those online, just to explain what will happen, you will be put into a waiting room while the deliberation takes place. You won't automatically come back into the meeting. However, when you are able to come back in, the join button will be live or let you click it, so you'll have to keep an eye out for that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can I invite those who are not members of the committee to leave the room, please? Councillor Carter.
officers and or the council to speak and or answer questions at council, committee and meetings, to remain in the room during any debate unless the matter under debate relates to financial issues or funding above the amount of £500, in which case Councillor Chris will be able to initially speak and answer any questions, but then will need to leave the room before the matter is debated and voted upon. So those are the terms of the dispensations that have been granted, and they've been granted under the relevant regulations under ground D, which is the nature of the members' interest is such that their participation in the business to which it relates will not damage public confidence in the conduct of the authority's business, that the participation of the member in the business to which it relates is justified by their particular or expertise, and then also their ground H, and that relates specifically to the situation where there is a voluntary organisation where the member is on the board, but otherwise than as a representative of the authority and has no other interest in the business. But that specifically does not extend to participation in any vote in respect to that business. And Chair, of course, the dispensations that have been granted are in accordance with those matters.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Thank you for your attendance and for the information.
And can I thank the committee for its consideration of the application? Thank you very much, Chair.
Well, thank you, Brenda, for stepping in for that item, and for the team for undertaking that deliberation in my absence. So we've now arrived at item 9, which is feedback from independent member attendance at meetings. And I think we have 3 to consider this morning. So if we may begin with Brenda again, keeping you busy this morning. Who's been to Trevorrow?
You need to re-log in after you've moved.
I'll tell you what. While you get comfortable, Brenda, perhaps Maggie can start us off with Better Coed.
Shall I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I went to Better Coed Community Council on the 9th of June. In terms of the website, it was comprehensive, accessible, bilingual website, very easy to navigate, with a full list of members. Minutes were published, and these were very detailed, fully bilingual. I noted in the minutes there was a lot of activity, a lot of actions, and on previous minutes as well. Meeting dates were indicated, financial information was available and easy to find. In terms of attendance at the meeting, there were no members of the public present. 5 councillors were present, so there were 4 apologies. Previous minutes showed almost full attendance, so that seemed to be an exception in terms of the number of apologies. Liz Roberts, the county councillor, was also in attendance, and those who were present were fully prepared, engaged and participating throughout. In the Memorial Hall in Better Coed, they did have the benefit of a large screen, which the clerk ensured that the papers were on the large screen for all the attendees, so that was very useful. Expressions of interest were invited at the start of the meeting by the chair. The chair invited each member individually, went round the room. No expressions of interest were declared at that meeting. looking at previous meetings and the minutes, there were expressions of interest, declarations of interest, although in the minutes that I looked at, the nature of those declarations was not recorded. Finally, there were no issues of conduct or governance during the meeting. The chair managed the meeting effectively and respectfully, and the behaviour of all was respectful and appropriate throughout. The clerk offered a lot of advice to the meeting regarding things like the need to go to tender for 3 quotes where works were being discussed that would be in excess of £5,000, for example. And just in terms of general observations, the clerk was extremely knowledgeable in relation to the content, context and process of the business of the council, and this appeared to be particularly beneficial in relation to the high level of ongoing activity observed. Training undertaken by members was an agenda item, and an ongoing record of training was put on the large screen by member, so that was beneficial to see an ongoing log. And the chair and the clerk had recently undertaken training on the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and the chair fed back to the meeting as to how that would impact the work of the council going forward.
Thank you very much, Maggie, for your attendance and for that comprehensive feedback. And yep, it's good to see that excellent work's been carried out in Betws-y-Coed. Thank you. So, if Brenda's now ready to go,
So,
we'll just move a couple of miles down the valley to Treview.
yes, I visited Treview on the 8th of... I visited Treview on the 8th of April. There were 5 councillors in attendance, one remotely, the other face-to-face. The strong areas, the website was clear, easy to access. Everything that I was expecting to see was there. Register of interest, plans, and agendas and minutes. I was particularly impressed that although the meeting was conducted in English, the agendas and minutes were published bilingually. I haven't seen that in the other councils where the language has been English. There was good attendance and good chairing, good control of the meeting, a very experienced chair, and good engagement with all the people who were there. And that included one member of the public who was there observing with a view to joining the council. Council is carrying 3 vacancies, so that seemed like an example of good practice, somebody observing to find out what would be involved before joining. As a strong community focus. Some areas for possible improvement. There was one declaration, it was by the chair. There seemed to be some confusion about the differences between personal and prejudicial interest, and also about behaviour once the declaration was made. In this instance, the chair did not leave the meeting and did not leave the chair, although checking the minutes, she had in fact left the meeting when the same item had been previously discussed. Clearly, there was some discussion about that in feedback. The other area was there was a second member of the public who was disruptive, arrived late, interrupted the discussion, insisted on an immediate update of his item of interest, and was expecting the council to have responsibility for areas that were well without their control. He was obviously well known to everyone on the council, but my own feeling was that the chair should have been a bit firmer in managing him, because he definitely disrupted the process of the meeting. And then the third area for improvement relevant to this morning's meeting was their IT problems. Because of the nature of the Trevu patch, half of it is at the mountain, half of it is in the valley. They don't meet in person during the winter. So this April meeting was when they were moving from online to face-to-face. That was one change. And the other change was they had been using Skype and they were having to move on to Teams. So as a result of those problems, there were a few delays, but more importantly, the remote attendee wasn't able to engage fully. Hopefully that's been sorted by now. Overall, though, strong commitment to their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for attending the meeting. And to all the colleagues who continue to make these visits. And so, last but not least this morning, we'll cross the bridge to Glwys-Bach. And Glyn, os gwelwch yn dda.
Diolch yn fawr. Ar y 30 o Fehefin, athon ni I Glwys-Bach. A gai yn y lle cyntaf, pob yn clywed? Gai yn y lle cyntaf, diolch i'r cadeirydd am wedi helpu'r apprentice noson yna yn Glwys-Bach. A hefyd, swn i'n cael diolch I Matt ac I Sally am roed y wybodaeth ar y we I mi am be I edrych am o a sut I wneud y gwaith. Dwi'n ddiolchgar iawn am hynna I ddechrau.
Glyn, un pwynt bach os gwelwch yn dda. Roedd y cyfarfod 8 o Ebrill.
Sorry?
The meeting was on the 8th of April.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, cadeirydd am hynny. At I gilydd, o'n i'n meddwl bod y pethau yn byr dda yn cael eu rhedeg yn cyfarfod y Cyngor Plwyf yn Glwys-Bach. Roedd y bethau angen I newid. Enghraifft, roedd do'n ddim datganiad ar y we pwy oedd y cadeirydd na chwaith pwy oedd yr is-gadeirydd o hwnna I gael ei newyddaru. A hefyd, do'n ddim agenda o'r gwahanol bwysgorau ar y we, ond ar y noson mi gawson ni yr agenda. Yn anffodus, ar y we, mi oedd y system oedd bod nhw yn cyfarfod ar y cyntaf, ar y doslun cyntaf yn y mis bob tro, ond doedd nhw'n dilyn hynny. Doedd neb o'r cyhoedd no. Roedd neu fater o ddangos diddordeb ar yr agenda, ond hwyrach bod y mater yn cael ei braidd yn amwys, os ydych chi, ond mi gafwyd datganiad o ddangos diddordeb, a nath y person o ddim ymadel ar ystafell ac I fod yn deg ar y pwynt yna, do'n ddim angen i'r person nhw ymadel ar ystafell. Gyfelly doedden ni'n gweld, do'n ddim mater fod aelod wedi manteisio'n bersonol na chwaith fod y rhagfanllyd ar unrhyw fater. Yn gyffredinol eto, roedd ymddygiad da, oedd cadeirio yn foddhaol, a o'n I yn teimlo bod yr aelodau I gyd yn cyd-dynnu yn dda hefo'i gilydd. Diolch yn fawr, dyna sgwna I ddweud.
Well, thank you, Glyn. If I may, and thank you for coming with me to that meeting. So I think you're now good to go elsewhere, and we've got quite a list. Yes, the meeting had many strong points. I just want to reinforce the fact that the website is still showing the wrong date for the meetings, and I think this is clearly a significant difficulty. The meeting is actually held on Tuesday. The website says Monday, and there's little else of any relevant information on there as well. They have undertaken to do something about that. Also, the meeting was conducted sort of bilingually. I think the attempt was principally in Welsh, but it wasn't completely successful, and there were no technical aids available. So I think that also needs some attention if it has the proper aim of being a fully bilingual and participative event. But it was good attendance, no members of the public. Local people clearly engaged in what they're doing and committed to the village, fine village of Eglwysbach, as you would expect. So once again, thank you, Glyn, for coming with me, and we'll see how they'll keep an eye on what happens, particularly with the website. Thanks to all my colleagues who participated. I believe this is one of the most important responsibilities of the independent member team. And as you've seen, we've been active in that regard. And I'll be suggesting some more venues for later in the summer and throughout the year. Perhaps some repeat visits as well. So thank you. Are there any questions on this item? I think we have Brenda, please.
It's not a question on what's been reported back. It's the issue of how we're working through the councils on this occasion. Llandulas was on the list, and I'd nearly made contact with the clerk when, fortunately, Jill picked it up and told me that she'd been the previous few months before. It could have been a bit embarrassing, not to say a waste of my time, because Jill will have done an entirely competent, if not good, job. So I think I've asked before, but with that experience, would it be helpful to have a list of the councils that we have visited recently so that we're sure that we're avoiding any duplication? Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, we should have a list and, in fact, dates against which all the town and community councils have been visited. So I will have a chat with Sally outside of this meeting about getting something together. So that will also help in terms of forward planning for those visits.
Thanks both. I just also make the point that sometimes repeat visits, often quite short period apart, are, in my view, sometimes important and necessary if particular issues arise. I'm not certain it was in the case you've cited, but this is not, given the resources we've got and the time available. There is a rotation element to this upon the requirement, but there's also a risk-based decision to be made as well in terms of those councils which seem to be proceeding a little bit more comfortably than others.
I entirely understand that. And with an indication of a current problem, I would have followed up. On the other hand, no one in the midst of time appears to have gone to Trevreux, and they were extremely welcoming and pleased that someone was acknowledging their existence. So there's a balance, isn't there?
There is,
thank you. Can't possibly cover everything.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions on the visits? No. Thank you. Item 10 then is the appointment of an independent member to the committee. So, as per previous, a member will leave us at this point. And Matt, if you kindly talk us through the procedure here.
Yeah, essentially, Chair, this is just about consulting with the committee. The way that Jill's first term comes to an end on the 21st of October, and under the relevant legislation and regulations, she's eligible to be reappointed, should I say, for a further term, and she's indicated that she's willing to serve a second term as a member of the committee. It's the council that makes those appointments, so I'm proposing to take a report to the next council meeting, and that's because the council need to make that appointment prior to the expiry of Jill's first term, and so that will need to be made at the July meeting of the council, so that the reappointment is in place before the end of that term. In the past, I've consulted with Standards Committee members before requesting council to make a reappointment, so that I can put that within the consultation section of the report to show that the Standards Committee is supportive. And so that's the purpose of the report to the committee today, in order to confirm to council that committee members are supportive of Jill's reappointment to the committee.
Thank you. I hope that's clear for everybody. So any points, anybody on the procedure that we've been invited to follow? Accordingly then, can I ask for a proposer and seconder that Jill Murgatroyd be reappointed to the Standards Committee for a second term? Proposed Frank, seconded Brenda. So we'll do an electronic vote for this, please. So thank you, the vote is started, so you've got the hang of it now. We're all done. And close the vote, please. All right. So, with the understandable abstention, the vote is passed clearly. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Welcome back, Jill, and welcome back to the committee. Delighted to say that the vote has been in favour of your continued presence, and I'm personally very pleased with that as well. You've proven to be a diligent and highly participative member of the group, and we'll continue to have your services, so thank you.
Yeah, it's just to confirm, it's actually the full council that made the appointment, so the committee is supportive of that. So I will take a report to full council to make that appointment in due course, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll move to item 10B then, which is the draft report to the Standards Committee, pages 18 to 27 in your pack. Once again, Matt, if you just explain what you've done here.
Yeah, I'll be brief, Chair, because as members of the committee are aware, I've circulated this report to all members to have a look at. There's a requirement under the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 for Standards Committee to produce an annual report, and this is now the third annual report of the committee. There's also some specified content that has to be included within the report, and I'm confident that that is within this report, and it's attached as the appendix to the report, and it includes all the details of the work that the committee's undertaken from April 2024 to the end of March 25, and the recommendation is to approve the annual report for that year, Chair.
Any comments or questions, please, about the report? No. In that case, can we please note the report by vote. And again, I think we're going to use electronic one, but first, proposer and seconder, please. First. Proposed Jill, second Frank, thank you. So, yes, the vote is now open. Have we all voted? Not yet. Can you close the vote, please? Open the vote. Close it. Oh, there we are. Well, it is there now. Yeah. We're getting the hang of this, aren't we? We are. It's excellent, really. It's very good. There we are. So your report's passed with flying colours, Matt. Well done. Thank you. Green in this case.
Thank you, Chair. Although it's the committee's report,
of course. Yeah. And then item 10C is a review of the members' self-regulatory protocol, pages 28 to 53 in your pack. Matt, please.
Yeah, I'll say a little bit more about this, Chair. So just first of all, just a reminder of what local resolution processes are. They are adopted by councils essentially in order to have a process for dealing with low-level complaints between councillors. And the purpose really is to try and help nip those kind of issues in the bud so they don't escalate and so that members are able to continue to work together in respect of council matters. The local resolution processes aren't appropriate for dealing with more serious issues of misconduct, and complaints about those kind of matters are obviously more appropriately dealt with by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. And in March, Chair, I took a report to the committee March this year to explain that there'd been a national review of local resolution processes across Wales. And this culminated in the report and checklist that has been provided by the National Monitoring Officers Working Group and has been attached to this report at Appendix A. I'm also aware, Chair, and I did forget to ask you about this, but I'm also aware that the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales has written to all chairs of standards committees to specifically endorse the work of the working group, including the checklist that they've produced. So hopefully you have had that, Chair, but if not, I can send that to you. Essentially, the Ombudsman have just endorsed that work and the checklist that's been provided by that group. So the relevance of that is there can, of course, be a high level, therefore, of assurance that if the council's local resolution process is reviewed alongside that checklist, then it should, of course, accord with what the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales considers to be an appropriate local resolution process. The council's own process is called the Member Self-Regulatory Protocol, and I've attached that to the report as Appendix B, but with some track changes, which I'll explain shortly. Then in the main body of the report itself, at paragraph 3.3, there's a table that lists each point of that checklist and sets out how Conwy's own local resolution process accords with that checklist or otherwise, and where it therefore appears appropriate to make changes to Conwy's local resolution process because of the advice in the checklist. I've set an explanation out within the table about that summary, and then I've also made proposed changes to the local resolution process accordingly, and I've tracked where those changes have been made so that it's clear to members of the committee. And as I've already said, that can be seen at Appendix B to the report. So, overall, there are broadly 11 key recommendations in the checklist, though some of them have multiple parts. And the table at paragraph 3 comments on all of those recommendations, but I'm just going to briefly speak about the ones that have led me to make amendments or proposed amendments to Conwy's local resolution process for consideration by the committee, and there are 6 in total. So the first is there is a recommendation that the process should specify the standards of behaviour expected, and an aggregate list of behaviours that has been drawn down from 8 existing local resolution processes in other counties in Wales is attached, and it's suggested that that is included. While Conway's protocol states that members will avoid things like personal confrontation in public forums and through the media, it doesn't contain a specific list of expected behaviours. So the list has been recommended by the working group, and that's been added to the revised version of the protocol at Appendix B. And that's shown in track changes specifically as new paragraph 2 at the bottom of page 43 through to page 44 of the agenda pack. The second proposed change is provision of examples of what might be perceived to be high-level complaints. There is a recommendation that they should be included in the local resolution process, and that it should also state that the monitoring officer will advise in all the circumstances, and the complainant will essentially choose what route to adopt. The current protocol doesn't say what amounts to a high-level complaint. A short list of examples have been included in the revised version of the protocol, again at Appendix B, and that's specifically at paragraph 1.13 at the top of page 43 of the agenda pack. The third matter is that there is advice from the working group that it is difficult for a monitoring officer to appear unbiased and to fulfil their statutory role in any proceedings if they make a complaint themselves. And so the complainant should be advised to refer a matter to the Ombudsman if warranted, rather than the monitoring officer performing the task themselves. And what's being referred to there in terms of the statutory role in proceedings is, should there be a complaint, should that be investigated by the Ombudsman, and they decide that there is evidence of a breach of the Code of Conduct. Two of the things they can do is they can either refer it to the Adjudication Panel for Wales to hold a tribunal, or they can refer it back to the Standards Committee to essentially hold a hearing and make a decision about the breach and whether to impose any sanction. And the monitoring officer has a statutory role in both those processes. So, of course, if the monitoring officer is therefore a complainant, then it will put them in a position where they're unable to fulfil that role. So that's where that advice is coming from. And that's not currently explicitly stated in Conway's protocol, although it is specifically included in the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales guidance. So a statement's been included in the revised version of the protocol at Appendix B, and that's at paragraph 7, page 46 of the agenda pack. The fourth alteration relates to a complainant and a member having to agree to use of the protocol. That's something in practice, Chair, that when I've been assisting members with any issues, it is something that I would advise anyway, because essentially it's a resolution process, and both parties have got to be engaged in it for it to work. But however, given that it's not explicitly stated, a statement has been included in the revised version, and that's at paragraph 1.14. Just a couple of final points. The fifth one is that use of the protocol can't exclude a statutory right for a complainant to complain to the Ombudsman at any time that they choose to do so. That's a statutory right. And Conway's protocol doesn't include a statement that a matter may still be referred to the Ombudsman for the complainant member. There is a statement in the protocol there is a statement in the protocol that says a matter may still be referred to the Ombudsman by the complainant member. However, there isn't a statement that makes it absolutely clear about what that means in respect to the process. So a statement has been added to make it clear that should a referral be made, then the procedures under the protocol will cease unless they're then referred back to the Council for Local Resolution. And that wording has been included at paragraph 1.15, page 43 of the agenda pack. So the final specific change relates to the number of stages in the process. This isn't specific advice really from the working group, but they do point out that there are at least 2 stages to most processes. When I was reflecting on when I have been advising in relation to the protocol, in relation to resolving issues locally, in reality, myself or Kerry as my deputy often offers some initial advice to a complainant or to and has discussions with the complainant and the member who's complained against, and that happens in practice anyway. But it would be helpful to have that set out as a first stage to the process before moving on to stage 2, where there are discussions between group leaders. So that's been added as stage 1 at the bottom of page 44 of the pack. I have also picked up just 1 or 2 minor changes as well, which are just to do with wording, nothing of substance, but I have included those as track changes so that's clear. So just finally, in terms of process for adopting an amended local resolution process, because it forms part of the council's constitution, and if this committee is either content with it as drafted or has any further suggestions or other proposals, the final amended document will need to go first to Democratic Services Committee in order for that committee to make a recommendation onto full council to adopt it as an amended part of the constitution. So that's all from me, Chair, unless I can be of any further assistance.
Not on again, it's gone off. Thank you, Mark, for that explanation and for the background work that's gone into this. This is a really important document, and I'm pleased to see that it has been reviewed. The Ombudsman does appear to be wholly supportive of this, which I'm pleased about, and she will be attending the National Standards Forum this afternoon, where I'm sure this will be a matter of discussion. But anything that streamlines the process, that makes it less onerous, less confrontational, and leads to time and cost-effective outcomes can only be a good thing. So I think I perceive that there's some positive steps here. But members, you're entitled to your view. So has any comment at all this afternoon, this morning, on the protocol? Yeah, there we are. The machine's working again. So Councillor Emery first, and then Jill.
I suppose it's a question about the timing. I think the flow chart on page 47 is quite useful to look at. Is the sort of 10 working days and 20 working days, was that, do you think, designed for everybody literally to calm down? Because when we've had tete for tete in meetings and everyone's very feisty for the first day, and then a couple of days later they decide it actually wasn't worth pursuing. Was there a reason why there's so much time of working days between that? Is it designed that actually people make up in the pub rather than have to go through this?
Chair, I'm not the architect of the original process, so I can't speak with authority as to what the reasoning for it was at the time. What I can do, though, is say that in reality, a couple of weeks and then 3 weeks it isn't really that long in terms of the process. In some circumstances, you would hope not. You would hope that these things get ironed out as informally as possible, because of course that's the whole point of the local resolution process, to try and do it in that way, to resolve issues, to nip them in the bud, as I say. But if you do have a situation where there needs to be a bit more formality to it, and in these circumstances where relevant group leaders and or the chair, depending on the circumstances, are having to sit round and actually thrash these issues out and come to a resolution, then there will be some process around that. There will probably need to be just some exchanges, not great detail, but perhaps some exchanges in terms of position statements and things like that, so there's something clear to discuss and it's easier to reach a resolution. So whilst I don't know what the specific purpose of that was for sure, that's what I would think it would be, and that's certainly how I would perceive it as being a useful amount of time to try and iron those issues out. Should the informal process become a little more formal and result in that final round the table discussions before the outcome.
Probably within 10 working days or within 20 working days. It's not like you have to wait 10 days, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it stayed on. Doesn't know whether forgive me. My understanding is that that's within. It is the mission here, and arguably sooner the better. Although I take your point about sometimes it's good to just take a pause for breath. And in terms of the pub, or the dispute location, remedial locations are available. I think that because the pub can often make it worse, in my experience. Is that okay? Thank you, Ken. It's a good point, because sooner the better. Jill, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the proposed changes are entirely sensible, particularly adding the new 3.1, where the complaints being made in terms of stage 1 to the monitoring officer or deputy monitoring officer. I think that reflects the reality of it, and hopefully things can then be nipped in the bud, hopefully, at that stage. My question specifically is, should this ultimately get approved, what's the intention in terms of rolling out the communication of this revised protocol to ensure that all elected members do fully understand what would be available to them? Thank you.
I mean, it will have to be approved by council, so all councillors will be cited on it. But I will also give some consideration and discuss with Head of Democratic Services whether we should also just give a briefing about it, although I think it has to be said it's relatively clear in the document itself, hopefully. When we do give training on code of conduct and those kind of issues to the wider membership, local resolution process is something that we discuss. So we could also bring it into any update training on the code as well.
Thanks, Matt. Just one question from me, and sorry to put you on the spot. Been with us a couple of years now. Your experience in Conway and the way things have been dealt with, which, from my observation, have been perfectly proper and followed all the procedures. Would this have changed any way in which you've dealt with any specific cases, just as a sort of impact barometer? If you can't answer that, I completely understand, because it's a retrospective question. But I'm just trying to gauge whether this is going to be a game changer.
Without giving that an awful lot of thought, Chair. No, I don't think so. Not within the 2 years that I've been here. As I say, even in terms of adding this stage 1 to the process, I think that is because I've reflected on what happens in reality, and the fact that having that initial stage just reflects really what happens anyway. And of course, the whole purpose behind this is to try and deal with any issues that arise between members in a sort of expeditious and a way as possible. So really, that's just making that clear that that's the first port of call before we go down a slightly more formal, although still informal process. But I can't think that will necessarily change the process. Whether or not having things within there that explain it more clearly, though, might be helpful. So it wouldn't change my advice to members on an issue, because that advice comes from obviously my knowledge and understanding of the processes and the law and the procedures around these kind of issues. But what it does is I think it provides more detail about what those things mean within the protocol itself, which maybe is helpful for me, because when members are having a look at that and then having a discussion from me, it makes sense that it relates back to the processes and the explanation and the list of behaviours and all those things that we will potentially adopt in the new protocol. And I think that might be helpful for that reason.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So we will look ahead, as you say, rather than backwards. So unless there are any more comments, Maggie, you've just popped up now, Maggie.
Thank you. Could I just ask a question? I'm just wondering how often, say over the last 12 months or the last 3 years, that the protocol has been used in Conwy?
Since I've been here, I've discussed and advised on the more formal aspects on occasion, but we have always dealt with things just in discussions between me advising the relevant members, involving group leaders where needed. I couldn't speak to the number of times that I've been contacted about these issues, Maggie. Not without doing some looking back at emails and meetings and things like that.
Okay, so the whole point is that it's relatively informal.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, and of course it's about trying to deal with fairly low level matters that lean themselves to essentially a mediation process, a local mediation process, so that relationships are good amongst members within the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any? Yeah, you're not on my screen, David. I don't know. I'm just as a. There we are.
Oh, cheers, thank you.
Okay.
It's just a clarification. When we're talking about the chair, are we talking about the chair of the council?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thanks, David. So if everybody's happy, then we can move to a vote. So we're, just to be clear here, we're recommending that this go forwards first through democratic services, which there's a hierarchy of committees here, isn't there, Matt?
Yes. So the recommendation is for members to approve the proposed changes which are tracked at Appendix B, and then in terms of the process, I will take a report to Democratic Services Committee in the first instance, which will set out that we've had this discussion about the protocol here at the committee, and that the committee support the changes, and there will be a recommendation to Democratic Services Committee to then recommend those on to council, because essentially this process forms part of the council's constitution. So the process for altering the council's constitution where it relates to council functions is that Democratic Services Committee hear a report on that first, and then it goes to council for final approval.
Thanks, that's clear enough. Proposer then, please. Glyn, seconded. Jill. Can we open a vote on this? There we go. That should be in front of you. Everybody voted. Can we close the vote, please? Thank you very much indeed. So that's approved, Matt. Thank you. We're getting the hang of this now, Sally. We're rolling here. Item 10D is then relating to 54 to 59 in the bundle, and it's a list of cases from Ombudsman's findings. I'm sure you've all had the opportunity of reading these. There are a couple of cases close to home. It's been put together by Kerry. So anything else you'd like to say, Kerry, on the cases you've assembled?
Thank you, Chair. Just really to focus on the theme that is recurring really in terms of these updates that I'm giving to committee. Really, members' behaviour again features very prominently in the reports that you'll see, and also the recognition of members' contrition when they have been investigated, or even in the information gathering stage. The Ombudsman is recognising if the members have had training or if they've not had training. That seems to be a mitigating factor in decisions to whether to go forward or not. There's also due recognition given if there's been a self-referral to the Ombudsman. That's also recognised. One of the cases is particularly interesting because the member had already been under investigation and had subsequently been disqualified, and the Ombudsman decided that it wouldn't have been in the public interest to continue to investigate because the sanction wouldn't have been any different. First time we have, and I think this is worthy of mention for the committee to consider what they feel would be appropriate and whether this would be something for more wider dissemination, is the report that appears at paragraph 3.11 of the report on page 58 of the committee's papers. And that was relating to consideration of the group leader's duty to promote high standards of conduct. And this is the first time this has been cited in the findings section. And this matter concerns specifically an allegation that a member who was also a group leader had, it seems, not dealt with an allegation made against another member of the same group. So there was an allegation made to the Ombudsman, failure to promote the duty of high standards of conduct amongst members of their group. So I thought really that was worthy of looking back at the duty and the specific duties that were engaged around that point, really. So the Ombudsman was looking at the code of conduct about whether this particular action, whether those actions were reasonable, because that's the test under the duty, is whether they had take reasonable steps to ensure that the group members were adhering to the code. So in this particular instance, there was a councillor had made a statement in front of others, and the group leader was reported for failing to deal with that issue. So I thought that was quite an interesting one because it related to the new duty that we've been looking at with the group leaders lately. And it was a very good example, really, of how it might be brought into play and how it could bring them in front of the Ombudsman. There aren't really that many details on it in the report, but I think it's certainly a case that's worthy of mention for how this could come into the Ombudsman's remit, the group leader's duty and the interaction between the two of them. So I thought that was really quite interesting because it brought into sharp relief how in practice group leaders are being brought to account. So unless I can assist any further, that was the most pertinent point I thought relating to the cases that have been before there recently.
Yes, the group leader one is certainly interesting as a concept, and we recently conducted our group leaders session here, satisfactorily, I believe. So that's certainly one to note. Are there any other points anyone wants to raise or questions about the Ombudsman's findings document? It's compiled by Kerry. Matt, please.
Yeah, I think, Chair, what we're trying to achieve as well with these reports, as well as updating members of the committee, is to see where there are any themes that might mean the committee might want to take some kind of action in respect to those matters, even if that is just awareness amongst the wider membership, for example. And perhaps the group leader case is one that's worth Kerry as my deputy bringing to the attention of group leaders by email if the standards committee wanted to ask her to do that, and together with with a note to say that we will of course as monitoring officer and deputy monitoring officer keep an eye on these cases so far as there are any developments in terms of the group leader duty, so that we can advise further as and when, so that could be something that the committee considers they want to ask Kerry to do arising from that case.
Thank you, Matt. Any other views on that specific first before we move on? So this is the... Yeah, I just want to pick up the point that Matt raised about are we comfortable in supporting the suggestion that we ask Kerry to bring forward anything specific? Yep. It's not a vote particularly on that, but I'm getting nods of approval to that. So yes, please, I think is the response. Diolch. And now other points, and Jill first.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kerry, for pulling the report together. Once again, it's interesting to note that equality and respect, though, still seems to be the main theme. And I just wondered, given the good work that you and Matt have been doing, I wondered if there's anything else that you think we could do to help members within Conwy in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps worthy of going beyond this committee in terms of the information that's in the findings reports. I think might be helpfully disseminated amongst the wider membership. I mean, obviously there's the regular training that's carried out with members, but maybe when from time to time, if the committee feels that it would be of assistance to members, that information from the report could be more widely disseminated.
Please, Matt.
Yeah, I think with it's always the case, as long as I can remember, that the majority of complaints across Wales come under that particular part of the code. But you do, Jill, though, Chair, does raise an important point, though. I think particularly if equalities issues were a theme within the cases, and that's something that actually in the past, when I was working for another authority, there was a theme where you could see a number of concerning issues in terms of equalities. That we did a note about that for the wider membership to think about, and I think that if we see those kind of patterns or those kind of concerning patterns, then Kerry would be highlighting that as part of the report and making suggestions about how we might bring that to the attention of the wider membership, so that those kind of patterns are less likely then to occur within our council. But I think when it comes to essentially showing respect, that's what really these matters relate to in respect of these particular case reports, and it's always as long as I can remember, it's always the area that gives rise to the highest number of complaints.
Thanks. Any other questions or points about the findings report? Yep, got Maggie, thank you.
Just one question to Matt in terms of what you've just said. When you talk about the wider membership, does that include town and community councils?
Yeah, so if we were to put out a communication to councillors, we'd do a message to all county councillors and then a message to all clerks to ask them to then bring the matters to the attention of their members.
Thank you.
And Chris Cater, Councillor Chris Cater, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I'm not a member of the committee, but I was at the Welsh Local Government Association conference last week in Venue Cymru, and a lot was discussed about this respect item, really putting potential candidates off standing for local government. And so there is going to be in October a conference centred around diversity in democracy, because we do realise that there's not enough diversity and people are being put off by the fact that they feel that they're opening themselves to unfair abuse by being local councillors, and they are getting in situations in social media that really are quite toxic, And so there is going to be a conference about this. Whether it'll come up with any solutions, I don't know, but we all do recognise that there's a lot of work to be done if we're going to encourage proper representation from our communities and more motivation, really, to become local representatives of our communities. So just thought I'd report that back, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Chris, and yeah, it's good to hear the wider context being acknowledged and embraced by you and the council here. So thank you for that. If there are no more contributions, then can we move to a vote on 10D, which is that we endorse the report presented by Kerry on the Ombudsman's findings. Proposer, please. Glyn, second Maggie. Gone off again. So moving to a vote, should all have the screen in front of you. Press now. Everyone's voted. Thank you. Close the vote, please. Thank you. That's passed. So I think we're now at item 11, which is the members' register of interests. Page 60, I think, in your pack. I think there's just one. Or is it, are there any? Just one. Two, aren't there? There are two, yeah. So unless there are any questions, can we move to a vote, please, on noting the register of interest? Thank you. Jill, second. Frank, thank you. Show of hands for this one, we can do. Oh God. Do you want to come in, Brenda, on this, or are we pressing the wrong button? You're not on your own. I thought we were doing very well, actually, embracing the tech. He said, I think we're doing very well embracing the technology. Thank you. Can I also point out that when this is working, I get a timer so I can tell you how long people are speaking for. There was some suggestion there should be a cut-off. It wasn't that I could bang the gavel or something if it was. But I've never found. But I know members of this committee are always commendably succinct, so no need for that today. So I think we're happy with item 11, so that leaves item 12, Register of Gifts and Hospitality. Once again, just a couple there. So if we are comfortable, by show of hands, can we... proposer, please? Yeah, proposer Maggie, seconded Frank. And a show of hands, please. Thanks very much indeed. So I think that concludes, Sally, from our business today. Some interesting items. A full house, I think, which is great to see. And all business concluded. And I do again thank you for coming to terms with the new technology, which I think will serve us well. And thanks to the team here at the front and behind the scenes for looking after us in terms of the technical and translation facilities. So have a great summer, whatever you're doing. Perhaps visiting a few community councils. That's always an option. Some very lovely parts of our county. And we do meet again, I think, as we identified earlier, in October. So for me, I'll see at least one of you later at the National Standards Forum. And have a safe journey back. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.